Welcome everybody. Let's look at the external structure of the human brain. We're going to be creating a model, and this is how it goes. This is the module known as OPV 120. The inferior structure of the brain arteries, a look at that. And this is the material that was used in creating the model. So I used some of my old pills, and they all look a bit different, to create different lobes of the brain. This is also what I was using. These are some of the crayons and the paints that were used to create the different lobes. This is just me outlining the brain and making sure that all the lobes are separated properly and making sure that all the lobes are drawn. And this is how it came out. After that, I had to outline it to make sure that you can see each part. This is how it started. So these are the pills that I was using as I was taking them out and showing them. And another one, this is also going to be used. So this is how it all started. It all started with putting on glue on the model that I had already drawn out, making sure that I'm going to stick them on and deciding how I'm going to go about that. And then I started on painting the pearls and making them look different, because as you can see, a lot of them are white, and I started sticking them on to see how it's going to look. And this was sort of the idea that I was going for, and I was just wondering where I'm going to change what. So this is the different lobes of the brain, and I was just taking pictures of it to show the different lobes. And it shows each lobe and it's presented by a color. This is the complete structure, and
defined it looks.
This is how it all looked like in the end, with the colors and the paints, as well as the different lobes I drew, what they do and what they are responsible for, and each part of what.
The frontal lobe is made up of the white pearls, and the frontal lobe, let's see what is it responsible for. The frontal lobe is responsible for motor control, for problem solving, as well as speech production. And which parts of the frontal lobe are involved in aiding these? So there's the premotor cortex that is aiding motor control. There's a prefrontal area that is aiding problem solving. There's the Broca's area that's aiding speech production. This lobe is very, very important, as you can see. Now, let's move on to our second lobe. Next, we're going to be looking at the temporal lobe. So the temporal lobe is the one with the yellow pills. Let's have a closer look. And let us see what is it responsible for. The temporal lobe is responsible for auditory processing, language comprehension, memory, and information retrieval. So auditory processing, we also known as hearing. And then with regards to language comprehension, the area that is responsible for this in the temporal lobe is the awareness area. So that is what the temporal lobe is responsible for. Next, we're going to look at the parietal lobe. So the parietal lobe is one with the pink pearls. And let us see what is it responsible for. It's responsible for touch perception, as well as body orientation and secondary discrimination. So with regards to touch perception, the somatosensory cortex is the one that is specifically responsible for touch perception in the parietal lobe. This is also another important lobe. Next, we're going to have a closer view at the occipital lobe. That's the one that's made up of the green pearls. So let's see what the occipital lobe is responsible for. The occipital lobe is responsible for two things: sight, as well as visual reception and visual interpretation. So with sight, the visual cortex in the occipital lobe is responsible for that. Let us look at another lobe. Another lobe is the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is very important. The cerebellum is there for balance as well as coordination, and it's the one that's made up of the poles that look brown. The last lobe that we will be looking at is the brainstem. The brainstem is made up of the blue poles that are below the brown poles, and this is responsible for involuntary responses.
Now, let's look at some interesting facts about the brain. This section is called Did You Know? Did you know that your brain can store up to 2.5 million gigabytes? Did you know that the human attention span is shorter than a goldfish? And did you know that memories start forming in the womb? That your brain is composed of 73% water? Sweating can temporarily shrink the brain. Did you know that memory is prioritized by emotion? Did you know that when intoxicated, you can't form any memories? The last segment of the video, we are going to do frequently asked questions about the brain. So, how does the brain work? That's the first question. The brain sends and receives chemical and electrical signals throughout the body. So different signals will control different processes and how your brain will interpret each. Second question, do all people have the same brain? No. No two people have the same brain. A study has shown that this uniqueness is the result of the combination of genetic factors and individuals' life experiences. So we all have different brains. Third question, what diseases can affect the brain functions? So you've got Alzheimer's disease, you've got dementia, which are similar diseases in a sense that you will lose your memory. You have brain cancer, where you can get tumors, and then you have epilepsy and other seizure disorders. Thank you.